So I'm going to go over what I did to, I have a 22-foot tri-tune Voyager boat with a 150 Honda engine on it. And I set up my trolling motor that I put on the front end. It's a I-5 motor guide. It's 105 pounds of thrust with a 36 volt system. And cut out that little section on the gate just so it would go over top of here, and that worked out pretty well. I was able to put that all back in there pretty nice. I had to take off this whole front end and take off the front side molding and then down the side. And then what I've done was I hooked up my hookup for my trolling motor with the plug-in up here. So I had to go through an ordeal with this. Plug in the system, and then underneath the seat here I had to run that wiring through there. I drilled a hole down through the bottom there, and that's that pin, that's that gateway that you need module to run off your chart finders, to bring your backbone up here and put your terminator end up here closest to the gateway system. So that's all set up. This is my center console. I'm running the Simrad NSS9 Evo 3, and then I have a Go 5. So underneath here, this is where I put my batteries at. This went through an ordeal. This is a lot of work. And then under here, you'll see I got all this stuff in here, but that's the batteries. So I had 3 batteries that I hooked up. I got my 2 chargers up there, and I got my NAC1 autopilot, outboard autopilot controller, and that's the pump that runs the outboard. Initially, I had all this wiring was just all jumbled in here. I tried to do my best to just run it and trace it around. I don't know if you can see all that, but anyhow, I try to make it somewhat decent. That's just my little breaker box where a couple things go into. At first I had just one 36 volt I had one 12 volt battery in here, deep cycle, and I ran my electronics off of that. Then I got this trolling motor, so I added 2 more batteries, and I initially kept my finders hooked up to the 12 volt first battery, and then of course I ran these in series and make up a 36 volt system for the trolling motor in the front. So, but I was getting a lot of noise with that, so I took all that off, and now these batteries just run separately. The trolling motor, there's nothing else hooked up to these batteries other than the chargers. Now you'll see 2 chargers, because initially I had a 2-bank charger when I just had the one battery without the trolling motor, and I charged the battery, my starting battery, in the back. So I went ahead and just, instead of me, when I got these other 2 batteries to make up the 36 volt, instead of me buying a 3-bank charger and a 2-bank charger, I should have just got the 3-bank charger, but I didn't do it because I've got 2 more batteries in the back I could charge. But so I basically just got another 2-bank charger, so which is charging 2 of the batteries, and the other lead, or if the other one's charging the other battery, and then I got a wire that goes all the way to the back, and it charges my my battery in the back, and I'll show you that setup. But anyway, that's what you got here. When I go into the back, you'll look, this is where my batteries are at, and I've got a 2-bank battery switch over, and that starts my starting battery. So I went out, I had just 2 starting batteries, and I would just switch them over. But right now, what was happening was the charger, the one charger that comes back and charges up this one battery, I had my electronics hooked up to. I got 2 wire that comes straight back to the battery. They're not hooked up into the breaker, up the breaker panel up front. And so now I just hook directly straight to the battery. They say that's the best way to go when you're hooking up your electronics. Now the issue I had was because I had a charger hooked up to the one battery here, and I had one of the finders was hooked up to the starting battery, the other finder was hooked up to the standby battery. And every time I hit the trolling motor, to start the trolling motor with my remote, you could see the noise still getting interference, even though I was directly hooked up to these batteries and completely off the system. But I think the interference was coming through the charger, the charging wire that comes back to this battery, and it's also connected to the 36-volt system. So I was somehow still getting interference. So basically, I eliminated that altogether. And what I've done now is, now I'm just charging the battery is just run off the alternator, of course, charging from the motor. And then my standby battery, I went ahead and purchased an AGM battery, which is a deep cycle and starting battery. And I disconnected the part that goes to the battery from this thing, just to keep any connection between the two batteries separate. The only thing I got going to this battery now, the AGM battery, is the charger, is the 2-bank charger, one of the leads that come and charges this battery. And this is where I have all my electronics hooked up to now, both sets. I got the NSS 9 and the Go 5 that's hooked up to this. And I charged that battery with the 2-bank charger. Now, the one thing I did was I went ahead, and you'll see back underneath here, I went ahead and took the lead. Now this is one of the leads that come from the charger. And so what I did was I cut the wire in half, and now I just join them with 2 couplings. So when I go out fishing, and I'm gonna disconnect these all together, and so I won't have any lead contacts between, any wiring contacts between these chargers and that AGM battery back. So I want no interference whatsoever to be able to come through any wire or what have you through my electronics. So when I'm charging the batteries in the battery in the back, I'll hook this up, and when I get out to go fishing, I'll disconnect these and be separate from the whole system. And I haven't been out yet, but I'm hoping that's going to do the trick when I start this trolling motor and see if the interference goes away. What I've done was, on the side here, I drilled into the side of the center console, and this is my plug-in. So both of these chargers I got wired into that system. So all I got to do now is just take my plug-in, as you can see here from the that's going to my shop, and then I can just plug that in and charge everything up. I'll get you a look at the transducers I got. I know this is probably a little overkill, but I just like playing around with these electronics for some reason. But that's the TM 165 high wide. This is the active imaging transducer. I put it separate you get it away from the 165. And this is just and that's the 3-in-1 total scan, which is hooked up to the Go 5, but I don't run that one. I don't even connect it up to the Go 5. I just have my 165 and the 3-in-1 active imaging total scan that I have, and that I use for my side scan and down scanning. And then of course I use the 165 high wide for my chirp sonar. This is just standby. If anything would happen while I'm out on the water, I've got something. So and that basically, but this here I don't even hook up, because I don't want this running and interfering with the 165. That's just my standby. Now, what I'm planning on doing, and because it may work and it may not, I don't know, I might try it, but on here I've got a nice flat spot on the bottom of the center pontoon, and this is just open into the back well here. And what I'm thinking about doing is, if I can find a room and come up between, I just don't want to hit that gas tank, is come up in there with a through haul structure scan transducer that I want to be able to mount maybe up in here and just place it to the thing. The reason I'm going to try that, and what I might try first, is I may take one of these trans-mount transducers, the total scan, and I may try and glue this thing or screw that right to the bottom of this. and I'm thinking this will be up high enough, so it may not. I'm just hoping that it doesn't cause problem with cavitation with the motor. So I mean, I'm going to give it a shot. We're going to see how it works out. That's the setup that I got. It went through a fiasco in the beginning, and then especially with trying to get the i5 hooked up with the Simrad unit, but I think I finally got that figured out. And I may go over that one day, but that's it. And there she is.